Imagine living in one of the world's most poor villages where your life depends on how much food you can grow and whether or not you're able to avoid deadly diseases like malaria. Wouldn't you want to learn everything you could to keep your family safe and healthy? Wouldn't you want to learn how to recognize signs of dehydration in your baby to know whether your baby was about to die? And then exactly what could you do to make a difference in saving that baby's life? But what if this kind of information, this knowledge wasn't available to you? I want to tell you the story of Literacy Bridge and our focus to bring life-changing knowledge to hundreds of millions of the world's most underserved families. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we got started and some of the surprises we had along the way. So in 2007, I was curious whether very low-cost technology could be useful in helping children to learn to read, especially in overcrowded classrooms. So I went to this remote part of Ghana in West Africa, and I was still interested in what other challenges did these children face, like malnutrition and disease. And I found that here again, education could make a huge impact, but it's a different kind of education, and the impact could be sooner than you might think. So for instance, I would sit down with healthcare workers and agriculture extension agents, and they would tell me about their job where they would visit hundreds of villages, and they would go there and teach practical tips on how to raise healthy children and how to grow more food. But there were too many villages, and they were too far apart. And so that meant that most of these villages were not getting visited more than once every year or two or even more. And when there was a visit, a lot of people wouldn't be able to attend. They might be sick. They might be taking care of a family member at a funeral, or they might just be working on their farms. But for those who could attend, most of those couldn't take notes from what they were hearing because they were illiterate, which means that all the details that they were learning in this annual or biannual visit would be forgotten by the time it was time for them to apply it. So when I would talk to these healthcare workers and agriculture agents about my idea for an audio device in classrooms, what they would say to me is, if I had a device like that, I would record as many lessons as I could on agriculture or health. I'd put them on this device, and I'd leave that device in these remote rural villages for people to listen to anytime they want. And it was after that feedback that Literacy Bridge decided that should be what we focus on. So that's what we've been doing since 2007. We work with local experts and opinion leaders to create content, to create engaging songs and dramas and interviews. And then we deliver those audio recordings on these devices, this talking book. So this is just a simple audio device, but very durable that we developed. And what it is it's designed specifically for people in oral cultures so that they can learn what they need to learn, when they need to learn it, and wherever they are, whether that's a village without electricity or whether the user has literacy skills or not. So in 2009, we started our first pilot program. And a few months into that, this farmer, Felix, came to me and said he wanted to show me his farm. So he had been pretty excited about the new ideas he'd been hearing on the talking book about agriculture, but he didn't want to literally bet the farm on all of this information. So he did something really smart. On half of his maize crop, he planted according to the techniques he had learned from his parents and grandparents. On the other half, and that's what you're seeing here, on the other half of his crop, he planted with what he was learning from the talking book. Now that year, in 2009, after seeing this kind of effect qualitatively, we did a quantitative impact evaluation and found that the average farmer in his village who used the talking book had a 48% increase in crop production. The average farmer who didn't use the talking book had a 5% drop that year. These days, farmers in his district, they give a Best Farmer Award, the Ministry of Agriculture does. And most of those awards go to farmers who have learned from the talking book. So in 2010, we started selling these devices. And we sold them to organizations in 18 countries. But there were two problems with this. One problem is we weren't learning enough about what makes a good talking book program. So after we would ship off our talking book products, we wouldn't know enough about the usage to be able to learn and share that learning with others. And these days, that kind of organizational learning is a top priority for us. Now, the second problem is these customers of ours, what they really wanted was a solution to help people be motivated to adopt new agriculture practices or health behaviors. Now, the talking book was a powerful tool, but it was not a solution in itself. There's much more needed. So we stopped selling talking books altogether, and we turned our product business model into a service business model. And so we decided to start developing content, creating this content, taking the pilot that we had and scaling it up. And within a couple years, we were partnered with UNICEF in a partnership we still have today. We were reaching 40,000 people in 49 villages. So we would develop content, we would have a behavior change campaign, we would design an evaluation strategy, and then we would also support the talking books as well. But this was going well. But there was another problem. The problem is that when we would talk with farmers, and they would be very happy to have all this farming information, they would say, yeah, but how can we get these seeds? Or can you connect us with people who can buy our excess harvest that we now have because of what we've learned? Mothers who were learning about bed nets would need to make sure those nets were really available. So we thought, maybe what we need to do is embed our talking book program into a broader program that addresses the more comprehensive issues here. And maybe that would be the right solution that these families need. So what we did is we went back to some of these same organizations we were selling products to before and proposed a partnership where we said, let us handle this behavior change education, this education about new practices people can adopt. And you continue to do what you do well with handling the logistics in community, supply chains, all of that. And through that partnership, because of this synergy between our partners' strengths and ours, we were able to very quickly and effectively reach 200,000 people now, which we regularly do. So that 200,000 people is a big number for us. But unfortunately, it's a very small number in the scope of this problem. Can you believe that 10% of our humanity does not have access to basic but very powerful information like this? And without this kind of knowledge, the UN Sustainable Development Goals will not be achieved for these people. So I would like to thank the Qatar Foundation and the WISE Awards for valuing this type of education. Education for women and men who are facing extreme poverty and the world's most deadly diseases. When they are empowered with this kind of locally applicable knowledge, they will be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals for themselves. Thank you very much.